Okay, right, I'll make it 7 o'clock and the system says 4 minutes to, but I'm going to overrule it because my phone checks with Big Bang and the rest. So welcome everybody to the meeting of the Democracy and Standards Committee today, Monday the 7th of October 2024 in the Council Chamber at the Corby Cube, Corby. Right, can we have any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. There's no apologies for absence, but Councillor Lynn Buckingham is acting as substitute for the Labour Group vacancy on the committee. Okay, thank you. Right, are there any declarations of interest that have not been submitted to the monitoring officer? Sir?
Yes, I'm a town councillor, and it comes under the community governance review.
I need to have a check on that. Do we have to declare if we're town councillors?
Not for this particular report, simply because it's setting it out for information. There isn't a specific decision to be made which will impact the local arrangements for the town and parish councils.
Just for a matter of record, I am a town councillor as well. I think Councillor Lawman's going to tell us the same thing.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to say I'm a town councillor, but I took no part in the voting for any, because two of the candidates were from my council, so I took no part in the voting for it. So I'm only a personal interest.
Councillor Brackenbury?
I was appointed to Chihuahua Parish Council by Northants Council.
Any other? Councillor Maxwell? Can you use your microphone?
I don't quite understand what's going on here. You're coming as a town councillor. You're not? All right, okay.
Councillor Maxwell, if it would assist, it's simply any declarations of interest at this point, and Councillor King wanted to record that he is in fact a town councillor, should it arise or be relevant for any of the agenda items that we have. Thank you.
Okay, right. Minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of August 2024. Are there any corrections or significant omissions that anybody would like to highlight? I see no signs of anybody making such a comment, so I will sign these as a correct record. Oh, Councillor Maxwell.
Page 6. On page 6.
What paragraph?
Sorry, page 6.
Page 6, which paragraph?
Yeah, I'm just looking. You've actually... where is it now? I'm just trying to think. The names of the councillors, I'm just trying to work it out. You've named people, but you don't say what exactly they are. So like Miss Jackson?
Yeah.
That's you? Yeah, it doesn't say that.
I'm trying.
Does it? No, it doesn't.
The first paragraph says the report...
Oh, on the top. Yeah, sorry, apologise. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Is it your wish that I sign these as a true and correct record of the meeting then? Right, okay. Can I have a copy to sign? Thank you. Right, now we come to the substantive matters. Agenda item 4, community governance reviews. Ms. Jackson.
Hi everybody, here we are again. So obviously what we're actually here for this evening is to seek approval in relation to the principle of undertaking community governance reviews. And this is in relation to the town and parish council electoral arrangements. So, as you'll know, the Local Government Boundary Commission carried out a review of the boundaries for North Northamptonshire Council, and there were implications from that review for some of our local town and parish councils in terms of some of the parish wards that have been abolished and been replaced by new ones. And also there have been some changes, I think, to the number of councillors that will actually represent those wards going forwards. So really what we're here to do today is to just look at the options for actually carrying out those community governance reviews. I'm not sure how familiar members are with those, with the process for those reviews. It is quite a time-consuming process. It's very resource-intensive. The good practice guidance is that the review will be completed within a 12-month period. Now, within that 12-month period, we would be looking to undertake two fairly lengthy consultation periods, so anything between sort of about 10 to 12 weeks. I think I put 10 weeks actually in the report itself. That's just to make sure that there is the opportunity for local communities to actually look at any proposals that are actually put forward, and they can actually make representations. They can come back to us with feedback, anything like that. It just gives them the opportunity. We're conscious of the fact that parish councils, some of them don't meet that often. So again, it just gives them the opportunity for everybody to get together to actually be able to discuss any proposals that we actually put forward, and for them to be able to either come up with alternatives or, you know, to make recommendations of their own. So within the report, there are two options that are sort of being considered. Option one would be to start the review fairly soon, potentially after this meeting. But if we were to do that, then basically there wouldn't really be the opportunity to actually conduct any sort of really meaningful engagement with local communities. So looking at the other option is to actually start the review, but not until September next year. The reason for that is that obviously we've got elections in May 2025, and what we would probably like to try to avoid is a situation where you start the review and it actually straddles the election, because if there are any sort of changes in councillors, or you get new councillors on town and parish councils, you're potentially losing that continuity. So that was one of the reasons, was to wait until September after the elections, give the new councillors, or if that's the case, the opportunity to actually settle into their role within the town and parish councils, so that they can actually have the opportunity to discuss and, like I say, come up with any recommendations that they may have. It also means that we can facilitate those 2 10-week periods of consultation as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think most of the other information is actually in the report that's actually already been circulated.
Thank you. Councillor Keane. Okay. I was going to say that the local government boundary review led to some quite extreme anomalies where there are variations in the number of voters per councillor of 200 or 300%, which is a little bit more than the normal 5% that we consider to be reasonable. The sooner that situation is regularised, I feel the better, because it's not exactly a clean democratic mandate that people elected under that sort of system will have. I accept that we're not going to do it before May, but the current situation is extremely, how can I put it, unsatisfactory. Councillor Keane.
Yeah, I completely understand that with the recall petition, the by-election, the general election, and the Police and Crime Commissioner elections, that why this has happened. But I do echo the Chairman's concerns about that too, because we are going to end up in a position where, for example, Corby Town Council, their wards mirror that of NNC's, and it's now you're going to have the previous NNC wards, which will elect town councillors, up against new NNC wards, and it's just going to really confuse people. It's going to confuse the electorate, and it's going to be of great cost. You're going to have to be really careful to make sure that people are voting in the right districts for town as well as unitary, which could cause some admin issues for yourselves. I just wanted to know how will that work with the polling districts, with how your town council wards will fit in with the new NNC wards. Because I know the previous boroughs of Kettering and Wellingborough, their town council wards are based on their old borough wards, so you've already got the infrastructure there to do that. But will going for option 2, will that cause any issues with them not aligning with the new NNC wards? But I also wanted to ask a question, because I'm not really happy with either of the options. I wanted to know if there's a way to go for a third option. When we were going through reorganisation at the unitary level, the previous boroughs and districts had their terms extended by a year, and I wanted to know if there's any feasibility on doing that, so you can extend the terms of the current towns and parishes by a year, and then hold the election for them ones in 2026. Then you will have the situation where your town and parish elections are separate to the NNC elections, and I think that's actually a good thing, because it gives it stops the position where you end up having whatever the unitary election results would be mirrored by the town and parish elections, and it could give better democracy. But is that an option that we could do, or is that something that because we won't be able to get it through government, that it's completely out of the question? Because I think when we did the parish councils, because of the unitary elections that were going on, again, they were quite rushed, and if we don't have meaningful consultation, we'll never get the town and parishes right, and this could be the only opportunity we're ever going to get to do it. Thank you.
I can understand your comment, and it makes a lot of sense, but I suspect I'll be told it's not legal.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, am I going on?
A question was asked by Councillor Keane. Can the officer answer that before I move on to the next person?
Okay, so in terms of the polling districts for Corby, so obviously we have got the NNC boundaries, we've got the new parish ward boundaries, so we're currently doing a polling district and polling place review. So what will happen is that those polling districts, the existing ones that we've got at Corby, as part of that review, they will be brought into alignment with the new boundaries, so that people will actually be within the ward that they're actually supposed to be in, whether that's a parish ward or the NNC ward. They're going to be the same, aren't they, for a little while at least. So that should resolve that issue. So that's work in progress at the moment. So that will come forward when we actually bring the polling district and polling place review back to this committee. In terms of separate town and parish council elections, as part of community governance reviews, you can look at extending the term of office of councillors. What I would say is that at the moment, obviously, we recharge for elections. So any parish election recharges will be greater if you have not got them combined with the NNC election, because obviously they will be split 50-50. For most elements of the election, there will be certain elements that are sort of just for the parish council, that relate just to the parish council. So that is another thing to bear in mind. My understanding of the legal situation is that you would need to commence the community governance review in order to extend the length of time of office. So one way or another, I think you end up in that process anyway. I don't know if Camilla's got anything else to add on the legal side of things.
Yes, just to add that, and thank you, Heather, for outlining the position. Yes, it is possible within that community governance review process to look at the town and parish council arrangements and when their elections will be taking place. I think what's really helpful for this report is it does set out that ambition to actually undertake this work, whilst recognising that there have been delays, and that's been noted by members of this committee, that it would have been favourable to have brought this sooner, but for reasons in many ways beyond our control, certainly NNC, that it hasn't been possible before now. What I would like to emphasise is the legal risk of trying to compact this process. Community governance reviews, there is a reason that there is a 12-month sort of period for that, and we're talking a large county review of this. It's not simple, small one-off councils. We're looking at it across the board, and it would be something I'd urge against in terms of trying to compact that timescale in to make it fit with the May 2025 elections.
Councillor Maxwell, then Brackenbury, then Lorman.
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you, Heather, how many people are actually involved in this report? How many people have actually been involved in it?
In the actual writing of it?
Yeah, sorting it all out. How many people?
I think there were 3 of us altogether.
Yes, Councillor Maxwell, I'm happy to confirm that myself, Sanjit Sull and Heather Jackson, could I ask?
Well, why I asked this question is because I was informed it was just you who were dealing with this report. You've actually recruited 2 more staff, I gather. Anyway, I'm going for option 1 because I think that we should be activating it now, not later. At the end of the day, if you go for the other option, it will be 2029 before we've actually sorted it out. 2029. And the election in 2025 is important, and it should be carried out. Why are we going to wait till 2029 if we don't go for option 1? The decision is to make sure that we either have more people involved in it, and equally, at the end of the day, with option 1, it means that it's done and dusted instead of waiting, whereas it should have actually been done in 2023, that this decision was made, and to actually then wait until 2029 is just not acceptable. It just costs too much money and it drags out. So I'm going for option 1.
Councillor Brackenbury.
I can see the views of others, but I would be totally against extending the period for election so that the parish councils were not in line with Northants Council elections. For a start, it'd be costly to the public purse. I would prefer option 2. It would be great if it could all be done and dusted by May next year. But I think we should allow sufficient time period for consultations, and there are numerous parish councils that meet on a bi-monthly basis. So I would be very against trying to rush this.
Councillor Lorman.
Thank you. Pleased to see this report. I agree with you that it's not really practical to try and get this through for the forthcoming May. And it is, I take the point about it being useful to bed in the new arrangements so that town and parish councils are able to see what they've got. These new arrangements were rather imposed upon us, and without us even realising what they were going to do until the document was published. So we've ended up in Wellingborough with 7-person wards, which rather takes away the local aspect of a local council, and also means if you ever get a by-election, instead of being a compact area, it's now going to be twice the size and twice the cost. And particularly the 3 new boroughs have not got a lot of money to old boroughs rather have not got a lot of money to spend on that sort of thing. So I take the point about extending the year, but if you start the governance review on the 1st of September next year, it won't be in place for May 26 either. So it would be May 27 before you had it in place because of the taking the year. And I want to thank officers for actually helping me not lose a lot of shoe leather by going around twice in 2 years. But no, I think we have to accept the officers' recommendation to start. But there is one question in the table on page 13. At the bottom, it talks about decision of the committee and then the order made. So I just wondered what the actual position of the Local Government Boundary Commission was, whether they could turn it down or whether they had to be consulted, or whether you can actually make the order without their permission. I'm just not sure of the legal position for the last two stages.
With any community governance review, it'll still have to go through the process that's outlined within that report itself. I haven't seen any examples of where that's been knocked back, but because it goes through a full thought out exercise, approval by council, it needs to go to full council for consideration. So I think the only opportunity for challenge around that would be if there'd been some defective process in that we hadn't consulted for sufficient time or we hadn't attached an appropriate weight.
It's not the full council I'm worried about, it's the Local Government Commission.
I think the concern was that it's going to have to go to the Boundary Commission for Local Government, who are the people who made the mess in the first place. Councillor Keane.
Yeah, sorry, just thought of another question. I'm just thinking about if you currently live in the Beanfield area of Corby, you're going to have the Town Council ward, Corby West, but the actual unitary ward of Corby West won't include the Beanfield area. So what are we going to do in a situation where you've got two wards of the same name that don't match the same geography?
Would you like to answer that one?
I mean, the long and the short answer is it isn't possible to remedy that in those timescales, because that in itself, a name change, has to go through a governance review, and that wouldn't be able to take effect until that next election cycle. I'm just trying to think if there's a practical example where I've seen it possible to bring it through. Certainly for those town councils impacted by these changes that are happening at unitary level, maybe there is some further work that we could look to do to raise awareness and highlight those changes to reduce any confusion that the public may face.
For the last umpteen years, we've had a town council ward in Rushton called Rushton Spencer North, which is in the North Northants Council Higham Ferrers ward, which is confusing as hell, because you've got things like Rushton Fire Station in the Higham ward. All Rushton's secondary schools are in the Higham ward. Rushton's police station, or what it was, is in the Higham ward. Most of Rushton's supermarkets are in the Higham ward. It's a mess already. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think looking at the two options, if we look to do it in option one, to get a comprehensive review and do a proper consultation, you'll struggle to do that before the elections in May next year. You'd end up clashing with, campaigning and Burda and goodness knows what else. Otherwise, you'd have to do maybe one consultation before the election and one after. And that gives you a different opinion, doesn't it, from different people. So I think the ideal one is to do it in September 2025, do a proper consultation with everybody, so everybody gets an opportunity to take time and do it properly, and then you can take it forward as per the recommendation in here.
Councillor Watts next, then back to Councillor Maxwell.
So who's going to be confused? If I'm the elector, I get some paperwork through the door, a list of candidates, and I've obviously had the literature for those candidates, and I'm voting for them for a position. Am I going to different polling stations or something, or am I going to the same polling station to cast my vote? Where's the confusion?
Would you like to answer this one?
I'll try and answer this one. So basically, normally what happens is that it goes down to sort of like the parish level. So the polling station will generally be at the parish level for that particular NNC ward, if that makes sense. So wherever the parish is, that will be where the polling station actually is within. If that does that sort of make sense? Yeah, that's usually what we do. Normally what we'll do is, for those little anomalies, there will be a separate polling district for those areas, and these are the areas where you may get 1 or 2 streets within a particular area, and then we will have to make a decision about which polling station those streets actually go to, especially if they are voting for different areas. So we are aware of a couple of very small bits where the actual NNC ward is different to the parish ward, but we'll look at that as part of the polling district review, which we're actually doing now.
Councillor Maxwell.
Well, if you look at 7.21, you can see that the guidance for this was actually published in 2010 by the Secretary of State. So that's a long time ago, 2000, that's 14 years ago. What we're saying is, if you go down the route of not having option 1, it's then dragging it out. It's costing a lot of money. And then to go for option 2, you're looking at 2029. I mean, it just doesn't seem to add up. That's the way I see it. I just feel that you could get it done this year, but it should have been done earlier. Why wasn't it done earlier? Why have we been dragging our feet in getting this done? That's what, it doesn't seem to add up to me. I just think the costs involved in doing it just doesn't seem practical. And so therefore, I think that like in 3.4, to think that we start next year and then end in 2029, I mean, who knows who's going to be on the council in 2029. I just feel that we should have got on with it, and we shouldn't be dragging our feet on it. It's the money that's costing us, and also the whole thing is not thought out properly. If we should have started this last year, why didn't we?
Would you like to reply?
Yeah, can do. So in terms of the actual recommendations that actually came through from the Local Government Boundary Commission for England, those final recommendations, I believe, were only published the earlier part of this year. So we would not have known last year what those outcomes were actually going to be, what those new wards were going to look like, what those parish wards were actually going to look like. So we couldn't have actually started it without actually having had that information first. And secondly, as has already been alluded to, we've had a recall petition, we've had a Wellingborough parliamentary by-election, we've had a PCC election and a general election. And that, like I say, it is a very time-consuming exercise and very resource-intensive, and it does also require, especially in the more complex reviews, the input of other service areas from the council as well.
Councillor Fedorovich.
Thank you, Chair. I think we understand that there were some, obviously, reasons for the delay, and it's not an ideal situation. It would be obviously much more preferable if it was all together, but I do think the consultation is the most important thing. We want to make sure that the right people have the fair say on this. It's going to be something that's in place for a long time. It needs to be correct. What I do think might be helpful is in terms of the communication, getting the communications team on board to do more than just the norm. Potentially even do some explainer videos or something like that to actually give people a proper heads up that they are going to be misaligned for a period of time, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way things have fallen, and being really honest and transparent about that. And I think people do understand these things. I did want to just, you sort of were saying about the anomalies of certain areas. What I just wanted to clarify was, is there going to be any chance that people will be sent to different polling stations, or are we working completely to avoid that completely, or can it not be completely avoided? I guess that's my worry for those small anomaly people.
So in terms of taking the last bit first, in terms of polling stations, because of how we're looking at the polling district review, there will be some changes for polling stations for some people because they have actually moved wards. So we won't be able to have them go into their usual polling station. So there will be changes on that. In terms of the comms, we've actually already got it in our project plan to actually talk to comms about the new boundaries, get a lot of information out to people about what's actually changing in their area. So that's already in hand.
I'd like to ask a question. Looking at this timetable, we go from the 7th of October to summer 2025. And then we don't actually start anything until the 1st of September. That's an 11-month gap. Is there no way that can be reduced?
I think what we need to bear in mind before we actually start in the summer of 2025 is that we need to do a lot of information gathering from the town and parish councils about what proposals they would like to see. So obviously we've already been made aware of one situation where they would like to create a new parish council. That is a very large undertaking. There's a lot of information to be gathered and prepared in relation to that. We do want to make sure that we get it right. So whilst we could consider that, but I think the other thing that we need to bear in mind is obviously we will have just come out the other side of the May 2025 elections. I think it would be good practice just to give councillors the opportunity to go through their induction processes and actually just get into, learning their role as councillors, adjusting to any different situations that they've actually got. So that's the reason why it was actually put as summer 2025, because there is a lot of work to do beforehand.
Councillor Watt.
I'm thinking it's what Emily was asking, and it's kind of what I asked originally. In the election, you'll vote for unitary councillors, you'll vote for your parish councillors, and this is really for town councils because parish councils only have like one polling station. Would you have to go to one polling station for your unitary councillor and then a different polling station for the ward? You wouldn't. So is there any confusion there? You just turn up to your polling station and tick your box and away you go.
What I would say is that obviously what it does mean is that some people will find themselves going to a polling station that they wouldn't normally go to, is what would happen in that situation.
They might have to read the polling card.
I think it's exceedingly unlikely that someone would, from one polling district, go to two different polling stations. The polling district determines the polling station you go to. Whether you have two elections there, one election or three doesn't really make a huge difference. I've got another question. How often is the government guidance suggesting that you should have community reviews?
I think it's sort of every 10 to 15 years that you would do
Every
that.
what?
Every 10 to 15 years, I think, is the guidance. I don't think it's actually set specifically how often you have to do it. But I think, generally speaking, good practice is to look at it every 10 to 15 years.
Well, parliamentary guidance is supposed to be every decade, although they really seem to manage it, and they seem to put pressure on councils to be at least as often. So I've got this nagging doubt that we'll finish this and then be told we've got to start all over again and do another one. It seems unlikely, but I can't help feeling that given the mess that we were given by the Boundary Committee, that they might manage something like this again. They don't seem to take much notice of people when you give them advice. Their consultations seem to be deaf. Councillor Maxwell.
Well, in my ward of Earthling Borough and 5 villages, so Earthling Borough, Crow Hill, is in a different ward to Earthling Borough. So when it comes to voting, does that mean that they go to the polling station in Crow Hill, and then for the NNC part of it, they then go to Earthling Borough Town Centre? What exactly, how is that actually going to stack up?
No, that's basically, I think, the same question that we just had
Yeah,
earlier.
so you're going to have the polling cards for NNC in the same polling station as you're going to have the town council polling.
Yeah, what we'll find is that people will go to the polling station that relates to their parish, and we will adjust it for the town. Yeah, well, all they're all parishes, but they get called towns as well. But yeah, so we will arrange it so that the person only has to go to one polling station. We won't have people actually going to more than one polling station.
The polling station you go to is determined by the electoral district you're in, not by the council you're voting for. So it doesn't matter how many elections are taking place on that day, you will only go to one polling station because you're only living or connected to one polling district. If you've got registered to vote in several different localities, then things might be a bit strange. So, for instance, if you have 2 residencies and you've decide that you want to be a voter, say, in a town which has different residence qualifications to the parliamentary elections, then you could end up with 2 polling districts and 2 polling stations. But it'd have to be pretty peculiar, and you would have to register in 2 different electoral areas. It's legally possible in some circumstances, but very unusual and obscure. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
What I'm trying to explain is, because I don't think you've quite got the message actually. So what I'm trying to say is that you have Earthling Borough Town, which is going to be split up for NNC elections, okay? When it comes to Earthling Borough Town itself, that means you're saying to me that they will have, that you'll actually have their polling cards for Earthling Borough Town as well as the NNC in the same place.
Yeah, so basically they will get one poll card, probably that's usually what happens, and it will say that there is an election for the town council and the ward of the town council if it's warded, and it will say that there's an election for the unitary council and the ward that they're voting in. No, they will have one poll card, one polling station normally is what they'll have. They don't go to a different polling station.
What you don't seem to understand is, I'm trying to explain to you, you've got the NNC, okay, polling going on at the same time as the town council.
Yeah.
Yes, yes?
The
Yes.
ballot papers for the town council election will be in the same polling station as the ballot papers for the...
They'll have 2 ballot papers.
They'll get 2 ballot papers,
Yes.
but they'll only go to the one desk to get the 2 ballot papers.
Fine.
Yeah.
So there's no confusion. Yeah.
Are there any further comments or questions from anyone? Councillor Watt.
You mentioned another parish. Would that be the Prize Hall? What impact will this have upon the move to reparish the area?
So in terms of the Priors Hall, obviously that is a massive undertaking. In an ideal situation, we would look to have that as part of this community governance review. And yeah, it would start effectively from the ordinary day of election, which is 2029. But as we've alluded to, as part of a community governance review, there is the option to put in interim arrangements between the reorganisation order and 2029. Does that answer your question?
Not really. When could they become a parish of their own?
That would be when the reorganisation order actually says when it's going to commence. So normally that would be from a 1st of April. So it may be, it would be as part of the consultation exercise, to be honest with you, as to when that actually commences. And then whatever the outcome of the recommendations going into the reorganisation order, that's when it would actually start.
It wouldn't be 2029 though.
It could be 2029, but as part of consultation, we could potentially.
If I may. Just to bring this back on track, I think we are slipping into points that we'd probably or most likely be covering when this report is brought to this committee, but also to full council as part of that consultation. I know that Priors Hall is one that's very much being flagged, but as Heather set out there, our ambition is certainly to bring it as part of this consultation and take that feedback from there. We couldn't give you a definitive timeline because it depends on the feedback that we get as part of that consultation. We know that it is a huge development. It's still underway, so even the size of that is still somewhat up in the air. We hope we'll have more information, certainly by next September, around the logistics of all of that.
Please don't tell the Neighbourhood Association 2029 that there'll be an uproar.
There's one question that puzzles me slightly. About 2008, 2007, around then, in East Northamptonshire, one of the parishes voted itself out of existence. They could not get any councillors. None of the locals wanted to have an independent parish. They thought it was a waste of money, and they voted locally to be merged with a neighbouring parish, as I recall. And East Northampton Council passed a resolution merging those parishes. Now, from reading this, that would have to be merely a recommendation that goes to the Boundary Commission of England. Now, is that something that was changed as a result of the law about 2007 or 8?
Not that I'm aware of for those changes, no, not in particular.
Okay, well that's a slight sideline. Right, well we now have, I think we've talked this one out sufficiently. We need to go to the recommendations. The recommendations are to approve the undertaking of community governance reviews in respect of the electoral arrangements for town and parish councils. Right, can I have a proposer for that? Okay, a seconder. All those in favour? That is passed. Right, second. Now approve the outlined timetable for the review as set out in paragraph 5.5. Now this is the one we've been debating whether or not we approved of this. Councillor Brackenbury?
I propose that we accept it, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Lorman has seconded that. All those in favour of that timeline? That is, I can see a majority in favour of it. Yeah. Okay, that is passed. Third recommendation, that's reasons. So we've now passed those and that's done. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the appointment of co-opted town and parish representatives to the Democracy and Standards Committee. This has not gone as well as we would hope. Would you like to speak on it?
Yes. Maybe not as well as I would have hoped, but we haven't had the level of interest. So, councillors, you have the report in front of you, and I'll take it that has been read. By way of background, a report was presented to this committee on the 4th of June 2024, agreeing that there will be a process adopted for appointment of town and parish council representatives to the Democracy and Standards Committee. That process started in August, and the timeline is set out within your report at paragraphs 4.2 onwards. What you will note within that report is the closing deadline was due to be the 8th of September. For the nominations, we received a total of 8 nominations and a ballot was taken with the councils. It was envisaged that the following an elections period, the closing date would be on Sunday evening of the 6th of October, so just yesterday. However, as at Friday, there had been only 12 votes taken out of a possible 106. The monitoring officer, in consultation with the chair of Democracy and Standards, took a decision to extend that window to give town and parish councils further opportunity to vote on the proposed nominations. That would have left us in a position this evening that we would have been we had initially intended on presenting 3 names this evening. We now don't have those 3 names to present to you. As at this morning, we had a total of 17. So there has been a slight increase from a push over the weekend that we've through further comms, but those levels are so very low still. So it is proposed for this evening that this committee defer this particular item and allow further engagement with our town and parish councils for the voting, to allow those 8 nominations to be properly considered, and that we bring a report back to this committee. Now, in terms of the timelines, we've looked at the 3rd of November as the closing, which allows sufficient time for the report to be drafted for publication on the 8th of November, to bring back to this committee on the 18th of November, which members already have in their diary. I'm hopeful that we will get to a point that we'll have had high levels of engagement, and the committee will be in a position to make a recommendation to full council, which will then go to full council at their early December meeting. So we're not quite where we thought we would be, I think, is the long and the short of it. But the request this evening is to simply defer this item to allow further engagement with the town and parish councils through the clerks, to see if we can work to increase those numbers.
I discussed this matter with the monitoring officer and with my colleague here, and I thought that with such low engagement from the town and parish councils, the election of town and parish councils to be co-opted onto this committee would lack democratic mandate and account and representation. It would be very easy for people to say that the numbers of people who voted were so low as to discredit the process. I therefore agreed with the officers that we extend it, defer if you like, and push hard to get more of the parish and town councils involved, so that there is a greater mandate for whoever is elected. Are there any comments on that before I Councillor Bucket?
Yeah, it slightly confuses me because we're getting so close to the elections. Are people going to think, well, are these people going to be in place by you know, it's a couple of months. So is it worth deferring slightly further down the line so that we have things in place rather than try to do it for maybe a very few months?
One moment. I have a lot of sympathy for that view. We should have done this 3 years ago, no question. We're actually probably in breach of our own constitution by not having done so, but we'll gloss over that. But it must be done in such a way as to be visibly democratic, and we've got to make sure that we have some transparency in what we're doing. We come back to the Nolan principles as usual. Would you like to comment?
Yes, Councillor Buckingham, it's just to add that consideration was given to whether we defer this until post-May elections, but the report that was brought in June, the view that was taken by this committee is that we do really need these positions filled on this committee. What you will notice in this report, and certainly the earlier report, is the expectation that their term of office will be extended so that it isn't that really very short window that we'll be looking at. Now, there is a risk, of course, that the councillors may not be re-elected onto their committees, to their council, and then we will have to go through that process. But we are looking for 3, and in the short term, certainly it will be beneficial to this committee to be fully quorate for the representatives that we need, and to assist with determining any standards complaints that come before this committee, should that arise.
I do have sympathy with what you said, Councillor, but I think that we've got to, at some point, do something. And with luck, a proportion of the people who get co-opted will be returned in May. Those who aren't, we will go through a similar process to replace them. But at least we will have got some greater credibility for our system. Because at the moment, if someone who's on a parish or town council gets a standards hearing against them, then there will be no town or parish councillors to sit and hear the case. And that is not something that I look forward to. Councillor Keane.
Yeah, we've had rules and we've had guidelines and we've had dates and votes have been cast. There's been some town council elections that have had very, very low, town council by-elections that have had very, very low turnouts. If there's 100 people and you turn out 20%, there's only 20 people that have voted in that election. And if the person that only wins by just over 50% of the votes, out of that 100 people, only 11 people would have voted for 11 eligible electors would have voted for that person who would represent them. I think if we've had clear guidelines, even though the uptake has been low, there is going to be an opportunity in May when we can redo it all again. And if we need these people in place by now, and we've already had people elect for them, why can't we just proceed? And then when it comes to May, we can then redo the process again.
That's exactly my viewpoint as well. Councillor Maxwell.
So, do the parish and town councils understand that this appointment will only be until May 2025, so that they are aware of this or not?
As part of the chair, through you, as part of the seeking expressions of interest and nominations, that has been made clear that this term of office is until May 2025, but with the option to be reappointed without going through this process should they be returned following the May elections.
Does that mean then you're anticipating that the councillors who apply for this will get elected in May? And if they don't, then you go through another process?
We're not anticipating that. What we're saying is that if they do get re-elected, they won't have to go through the same process again of being co-opted. If someone is not re-elected or chooses not to stand again, then we will have to go through a process to replace them. But it's better to have someone now or in a few weeks' time rather than none, because it means we have no mechanism at the moment that is legitimate for hearing a standards case against a town or parish councillor. Councillor Lawman's next.
Thank you. I'd rather have some sympathy with Councillor Buckingham's point. It'll be 2 months down the road, and we'll be, it'll be a very short period, and we'll be around the Christmas period. I remember there was a very senior politician in this county who's since passed who used to say he didn't care if only 3 people voted, as long as 2 of them voted for him. And I think we're rather in a similar situation. Have we actually communicated a firm extension? Because I was going to say, is there a constitutional reason why this can't go straight to the forthcoming full council on the 17th of October, omitting this committee? I know this is a recommendation, it's got to go to full council. So, and of course the other issue, apart from people not being elected, some of them may get elected as unitary councillors, you never know, in which case they'd still be disqualified again. So, having only a 3 or 4 month tenure seems a bit strange. It's a double lot of training for the officers as well.
In answer to your comments, there was an issue that one of the names got missed off the list of names that people could vote for at the very beginning for some of the councils. So if we were to go straight through now, the legitimacy would be questionable.
Just to, I recognise the really short timescales on this, and I think from an officer point of view, the preference would have been that we would have had high levels of interest in being able to present 3 names to you this evening in any event to progress that to council. What I will say is this meeting has actually been brought forward or has been put in as a special meeting. So the timelines that we were working towards, that we communicated to you in June, had an actual, I think, a 2 or 3 weeks lead in anyway, because we were working towards that November date of the meeting. So we've had to accommodate that. So we have given a shorter window than we'd originally envisaged for our town and parish councils to come back to us.
Councillor Maxwell.
Well, could we just make sure in future that when we have something like this, it could be anything really, that we actually are a lot more transparent, but we're actually on the ball, because I just feel that some aspects of decision making seems to be not happening quick enough. You come up with these plans, right, but it doesn't seem to be following through. And I think from the public point of view, it doesn't look good at all, actually. That's my only concern about this.
I think part of the problem is that town and parish, certainly many parishes, have very infrequent meetings, and you need to leave a really long window for them to actually get something onto their agenda and deal with it. I mean, some of the parish meetings meet only once a year. I mean, most parishes meet a lot more often than that, but it does make things very difficult to get them done expeditiously, should we say. Right, well, I'm going to propose that we defer this as suggested by the officer, and so we can try and get something more than about 90% of the parish councils to, well, try and get more than 10, 11, 12% of the parish councils to respond, get the other 88 or 90% to respond. We won't get all of them, but if we can get a higher proportion, it will give much more legitimacy to the process that we're following. I'm proposing that. Is there a second? Okay. Are there any? All right. All those in favour? Yeah, you were seconding, I assume.
Was, but I also wanted to ask a question, but it'll wait until after we've voted.
Okay, well, all those in favour? That is the majority. Thank you very much. Right, you were about... about to make a comment, Councillor Bracken?
Well, it's a question. Are we going to just remind the town and parish clerks that yeah, we defer, thank you, and gave encouragement, thank you.
That is entirely what we're going to do, yes. I know my parish clerk didn't mention it to me, so I'll mention it to her instead. That is the last substantive item on the agenda. There is no any other business allowed on this committee, so that is the close of the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for a very positive series of debates and a considerable involvement of most of the people in the room who've clearly thought about the issues. Thank you very much.